internet! Welcome back to Mutton Chop Gaming. I'm the Mutton Chop Gamer, and today we're having our 4th of July special. Now, I wanted to think of the most American game I could think of. So I initially thought Call of Duty. But then I remembered I only like to have good games in my collection. No! Get that off screen! We don't do hashtags here! Then I thought, hey, why not play the Oregon Trail? So I got the version I played as when I was a kid, and I put it in Windows 7, only to find out that the people that worked at Microsoft on Windows 7 apparently talked to the people at Microsoft that worked on the Xbox One and thought backwards compatibility was a waste of time. So I had to think, who is a true American hero? Kirby. Think about it. He's fat, he's pink, and he eats up everything in sight. I'm allowed to make that joke because I'm American. What's your excuse, Yopsy? The narrative isn't exactly expressed in the game, but I'll explain it here. The citizens of Dreamland had just woken up to a strange occurrence, that being that they had dreamless sleeps. Kirby decides to go investigate the situation at the Fountain of Dreams to find King DDD bathing in the waters, who tells Kirby that he broke the Star Rod, which was the source of power for the Fountain of Dreams, by the way, into 7 pieces. 6 pieces being given to his friends, and 1 piece being kept to himself. Rather than beating the ever-living snot out of him now for his idiocy, or even questioning why DDD thought this was a good idea in the first place, Kirby goes far, far away to start collecting the pieces of the rod. The plot isn't exactly Macbeth, but it's alright. It's remade from an NES game, and that's okay. I can't wait to see what they added, because I remember Zero Mission's amazing addition to the adventure. What's that? Did you say that they just copied the narrative with nothing new in this game? You did? Well, that screws things up now, doesn't it? There's not even a new world to explore. They couldn't just make one more world to add to the game. There isn't much else to talk about in terms of narrative, so I might as well just say that the visual aesthetics look nice. Without that classic NES slowdown of the original, the game runs a lot smoother, but that's not saying much for a Game Boy Advance game. All the sprites look well colored and animated, and almost everything pops, and if the game feels that something isn't popping enough, it'll change the normal color of the enemies to work well with the background. And do I even need to tell you that the music is good? Because it is! It's a remake of an NES game where music had to be melody-driven in order to be considered good, and the remastered tracks are still just fine. They're catchy and wonderful to listen to, and they're still memorable even after you had focused on the gameplay and not listening to the music itself. Speaking of gameplay, this is, once again, where the real meat and potatoes of a Nintendo game lie. The basic thing about Kirby is that he can eat enemies to either shoot them back out or steal their abilities. After one hit, you have a short recovery time where you can try to get the power back. But if the power ends up in the water or on spikes, it's gone for good. Eventually, you find yourself in a groove where you know what power-ups are good and what power-ups suck. Of course, the best power-up is one you can't leave the stage with, which is pretty unnecessary, and here's why. Enemies pop out of nowhere! It just feels frustrating to be blindsided by an enemy running at you from off-screen so you can't even respond to it. I know the game lets you take 6 hits before you die, and power-ups are frequent because they're just with enemies, but that doesn't matter so long as the game feels unfair. And it does feel unfair! So at any time, you could just lose that best power-up naturally. It doesn't have to be taken away from you at all. Not to mention, your life isn't determined by power-ups like Mario, it's determined by a health bar, so some power-ups you might as well just get rid of because it's better to be always open to a better ability than to just keep the dumb ones. Also, some enemies don't give you power-ups. I don't understand why they kept this though. You'd think that the remake would be the perfect way to completely revamp the game where every enemy has a power-up of some kind. Now, Kirby can also fly around the levels, meaning that you can basically skip over almost every hazard in the game. This makes the game sound easy, and you know what? It kind of is. The only times I died were from cheap things like enemies running at me before I could respawn, want. Kirby games have always been for beginning gamers, to draw them in and to get them to play more games. And to that extent, Nightmare in Dreamland kind of has that going for it. But if they're going to do that, they need to make the player feel as if the mistakes were their fault to introduce them to how games should work. And sometimes the game just doesn't feel fair. For instance, there are 2 spikes in difficulty in the game that I'm sure anyone here can agree with me for, and it involves the bosses. Once you find the best power-up to take down a boss, you can basically win almost instantly, but others are just plain unfair. Krakow, for instance, makes you go through a mini-level where death is very easy unless you carefully get up to the top with your power-up, and then he's difficult himself. And there's a huge spike in difficulty with King DDD. Not only is he a tank, but he's the most diverse boss in the game. He ran out of health! How did he not die there? There are also mini-games that can net you extra lives if you do well enough. However, there's no real point to it because they reset and you are set back to 2 lives every time you reboot the game. Oh, but you can earn points, but having points is worthless. Nobody wants to play for a high score. Not even when this game came out in the early 2000s was that the main focus of video games anymore. Also, I'm not a big fan of the level selection screens. You go through doors across big rooms, but large portions get blocked off unless you completed the level entirely. If you wanted us to not go into rooms, why not just say make the door locked instead of making us go around these big blocks when we only want to move quickly back to previous worlds to get a power-up to take on a new boss? Yes, there are fast travel doors, but the fast travel doors also have to be unlocked. What sense does that make? Yes, it's staying true to the original game, but since when is making the game less tedious considered to be a good reward for a video game? It should have been, you beat the boss, you unlock the warp star, ta-da! I suppose the biggest debate one could have with the game is this. Is it okay for a game to be unfair if the game is forgiving? Some enemies can hit you when you can't suck them in, and like I said, they frequently rush in, and some of the same kind of enemy with no variation from other versions of that same enemy will target you. And sometimes the controls just feel sluggish, though it does play marginally better on a Game Boy Advance. However, it could be considered that this is okay because you get another power-up or even the same power-up again almost immediately, and you take 6 hits before you die, with no enemies taking more than 1 notch of your health when they attack. Honestly, I'm gonna have to go ahead and say that this game is not okay. The game is a good way to introduce people into gaming for old video games because a lot of old video games felt cheap. But the remake should have focused on introducing people to gaming in the newer industries. And I know new Kirby games do that, and that's fantastic, but this 2002 Kirby game should have done it for the 2002 game industry. And I just don't feel it prepared people enough for that time period. This game also didn't really change much from the original other than the aesthetics. 2 of the minigames were changed, yes, but the minigames were just a break from the regular gameplay. And I feel that maybe a nightmare world would have been amazing. After all, King Dedede required players to be much better at the game than previous bosses demanded. So having a world where the game is more challenging in the right way, where you fight a revamped super final boss or even a final boss to another Kirby game would have been amazing.
Look, I have to give this game a C. I know that newer Kirby games do it better for the modern world, but if you're gonna take an old NES game and remake it, you have to adapt it for the modern world. That's it. I'll see you guys next week.
Hey, if you liked my video, then why not throw me a like, a comment, and subscribe to my channel. And while you're commenting, suggest a game for me to critique sometime later.